There could well be a change in government as soon as next year, which means MPs thinking about their futures. Parliament's calling it a day for the summer next week. A lot of members are calling time on parliamentary careers. Many Conservative MPs have already announced they're not going to be standing at the next election. One of them is the former Environment Secretary, George Eustice. And yesterday, the Defence Secretary, Ben Wallace, said he would also step down as Minister ahead of an expected reshuffle. Well, George Eustice joins us now. Thanks for being on the programme today. Hello. So you're not standing at the next election. Why not?
Well, I will have done 25 years in politics in total by the time of the next election, 10 as an advisor, 15 as an MP and 9 in Parliament. And I think the days really of people staying as an MP, for the whole of their lives, are done. I mean, obviously, sometimes the electorate have different views anyway. But in my case, I'll be 53 at the next election. I wanted the chance to pursue a different career. So that's what I chose to do back in January.
So I guess you understand where Ben Wallace is coming from this morning, then?
Yes, and of course, Ben Wallace, remember, I think his seat is disappearing in the boundary review. And so, when you have a boundary review, as we've just had, will always be some MPs, Chris Skidmore's another one, whose seats literally just disappear. And they then have a choice about whether they try and secure another one or whether they take that opportunity to step back.
I spoke to Kemi Badenoch earlier in the programme and she said, look, this is just because Ben Wallace has been in politics a long time. It's absolutely nothing to do with the state of the party and the polls. I mean, come on, that must come into it a little bit, right? It's a hard road ahead if you're a Conservative MP.
Well, look, the prevailing polls are challenging for us, that's right. And I think Rishi Sunak there is doing a tremendous job of keeping his nerve and really being industrious and working hard on some of these big challenges we've got. But I think you can also overinterpret these things. Let's not forget that in 2019, I think there were about 79 MPs who stood down, and currently there's about 45 or 46 that have decided to stand down. So every election, you'll get a lot of MPs that decide to stand down. There's perhaps a bit more focus on it this time, and people are inclined to maybe overread the significance of it.
OK. I'll believe you. Well, we'll see. We'll maybe have a difference of opinion. You, of course, have got another electoral test coming up next week with these 3 by-elections. If the Conservatives do badly, we're expecting it to be challenging. How much of a wake-up call should that be for the government?
Well, I think the important thing when you have setbacks in by-elections is that you keep your nerve, actually, and stick to the programme you set out. I think Rishi Sunak's analysis is absolutely right, that there are big challenges in the global economy, and we've got inflationary pressure, and we've got problems.
It's not just the global economy, though, is it? Because we are being disproportionately hit by this.
Well, it goes in cycles. So our growth was stronger than most G7 members, a couple of years ago. It's now weaker because everyone's on a different part of the cycle. But I think he's right in his analysis that we just need to work through this, show credibility, get the public finances in order. It's a difficult challenge, but there's no easy way back for us electorally. There's no popular thing that you can just say and think that that's going to change the polls. And I actually think a more significant watershed moment could be the party conference season. So the truth is the headline polls are what they are, and therefore I don't think these 3 by-elections will tell us anything we don't already know. But I think if I were advising Labour, and I've advised oppositions in the past, I'd be a little bit worried going into the conference season because Keir Starmer really hasn't said very much about what he would do. He's had a lot of fine weather in which he could have set out the foundations of what a Labour government would stand for, but he's chosen not to take that up. And I think, his poll lead and his current position is looking a bit, toppy, if I might say so, going into that party conference season. And unless
you wouldn't want a poll lead like that, would you?
Well, you'd want a poll lead like that, but you'd want to make use of that poll lead to actually consolidate your position as a government in waiting. And I think Keir Starmer at the moment looks very complacent. He looks like he thinks it's going to just land in his lap, that he hasn't got to work for it, that he hasn't got to try for it, and hasn't got to level with the public and tell them what he would do.
Scrapping inheritance tax, you're talking there saying that there's no kind of big popular things that the Conservative Party can necessarily throw around. It is what it is. But what about that? Do you think that's the kind of policy that could win a few votes?
Well, look, tax policy is always about choices. And the difficulty for me is, well, obviously it would be nice to reduce inheritance tax. If you choose to reduce inheritance tax, you are choosing to keep alternative taxes higher. And inheritance tax basically benefits those people who can rely on the bank of mum and dad if they want to buy their first home. I kind of think we also have to worry about those who don't have the bank of mum and dad that they can draw on. What about those who are working from the ground up and don't have anything to inherit? we ought to maybe be thinking about the income taxes that they pay. What about those businesses that are currently lumbered with 20% VAT, which is a huge burden on the growth of our economy and on those businesses' potential to develop? We should probably be considering that as well. What about things like a transferable tax allowance so that we help families with young children and support women who choose to stay and look after their children in those first few years of their life? We should be considering that. So it's all about choices. Personally, I would choose other tax cuts that support people in other areas over inheritance tax. But that doesn't mean to say we shouldn't do something and maybe look at the thresholds again.
OK, thank you very much indeed. Good to have you on the show. George Eustice there.